I never expected that forgetting my reading glasses at a coffee shop would save my life. But that's exactly what happened on a gray Tuesday afternoon in October, when I walked back into Java Junction on Bloor Street and discovered something that made my blood turn to ice. My name is Richard Ashford, and at 63 years old, I thought I'd seen it all. I'd built a successful accounting firm from scratch, raised 2 sons after my wife Patricia passed away from cancer 12 years ago, and prided myself on being sharp enough to spot financial irregularities that others missed. But I completely missed the fact that someone very close to me had been systematically trying to kill me for the better part of 6 months. It started innocuously enough. My younger son, Trevor, and I had just finished our monthly lunch at the coffee shop near my condo in downtown Toronto. He was 31, worked in pharmaceutical sales, and had recently gotten engaged to a woman named Stephanie. I'd been having these lunches with him every month since his mother died, a tradition we both cherished. Or so I thought. That particular afternoon, we'd talked about his upcoming wedding, his career, and my plans to finally take that trip to Scotland I'd been postponing for years. Trevor seemed distracted, checking his phone more than usual, but I chalked it up to work stress. He'd mentioned a big sales quota he needed to meet. After we said our goodbyes on the sidewalk, I walked 3 blocks toward home before realizing I'd left my reading glasses on the table. At my age, I needed them for everything. So I turned around and headed back, expecting the place to be empty by then. It was nearly 3 o'clock, well past the lunch rush. When I pushed open the door, the little bell chimed, and I saw Sarah, the barista, who always remembered my order. She was a university student, maybe 22, with kind eyes and purple streaks in her dark hair. But today, those kind eyes looked troubled. Very troubled. "Mr. Ashford," she said quickly, glancing toward the back of the shop. "I'm so glad you came back." "Just forgot my glasses," I said, walking toward my usual table. But she moved quickly, intercepting me before I could reach it. "Mr. Ashford, I need to show you something," she whispered, her voice urgent, "and I need you to promise me you won't panic or make a scene. Can you do that?" The hair on the back of my neck stood up. "What's going on, Sarah?" She looked around nervously, then locked the front door and flipped the sign to closed. My heart started hammering in my chest. "Come with me to the office," she said. "Please, you need to see this." I followed her to the small back office, my mind racing through possibilities. A robbery. Had something happened to Trevor? But why would she lock the door? The office was cramped, with a desk covered in scheduling sheets and a computer monitor showing what appeared to be security camera feeds. Sarah sat down at the keyboard, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled up a recording. "We installed new cameras last month," she explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're high definition, and they record audio within about 8 feet of each table. The owner wanted them because we had some thefts. But this morning, when I was reviewing yesterday's footage to find out who took my tip jar, I saw something else." She clicked on a file, and I watched as the screen showed the interior of the coffee shop from yesterday. Same table where Trevor and I had sat. But this time, I was in the washroom, and Trevor was alone at the table. "This was from your lunch yesterday," Sarah said. "Watch what happens." On the screen, I watched my son look around carefully, then reach into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small vial and what looked like a medicine dropper. My stomach clenched as I watched him squeeze several drops of clear liquid into my coffee cup. Then he stirred it carefully with my spoon, wiped the dropper with a napkin, and tucked everything back into his pocket. Seconds later, I saw myself returning from the washroom on screen, picking up the coffee and drinking it. I couldn't breathe. The room seemed to tilt. "There's more," Sarah said softly, clicking to another file. "This is from 3 weeks ago. Same scenario. Same careful glances. Same vial. Same dropper into my tea. And this one is from 5 weeks ago." Again. The pattern was unmistakable. "I went back through 2 months of footage," Sarah said, tears in her eyes now. "He's done it at least 7 times that I can count. Always when you're in the washroom or distracted. Always very careful. Mr. Ashford, I think your son is poisoning you." The words hung in the air like a death sentence, because suddenly everything made horrible, perfect sense. 6 months ago, I'd started having strange symptoms. At first, it was just occasional dizziness and mild nausea. My family doctor, Dr. Chen, ran some tests but found nothing alarming. She suggested it might be stress or age-related changes. Then came the headaches, the unexplained fatigue, the night sweats. More tests. Still nothing definitive. Probably just getting older, Richard, Dr. Chen had said with a sympathetic smile. Everything checks out normally. Your liver and kidney functions are fine. Blood pressure is good. Maybe cut back on the coffee and get more sleep. But I'd been getting worse. The past 2 months, I developed tremors in my hands. My memory was getting foggy. Last week, I'd actually forgotten my own address for a moment, standing on the street corner confused until it came back to me. That had terrified me. I'd made an appointment with a neurologist, worried about early onset Alzheimer's. And all along, Trevor had been poisoning me. Why didn't you call the police? I managed to ask Sarah. I called you first, she said. I tried your phone 3 times this morning, but you didn't answer. I was about to call the police when I saw you walk in just now. I thought you should see this yourself first. But Mr. Ashford, we need to report this. This is attempted murder. I stared at the screen, watching the loop of my son, my baby boy who I'd held in the hospital 31 years ago, calmly poisoning my coffee. I thought about all the times I'd blamed myself for being a burden, for getting old and sick. All the times I'd apologized to Trevor for canceling plans because I felt too weak. All the times he'd looked at me with what I thought was concern, saying, "It's okay, Dad. You just need to rest." Mr. Ashford? Sarah's voice pulled me back. Should I call the police? Not yet, I heard myself say. I need to think. I need to understand why. But even as I said it, a cold, terrible understanding was already forming in my mind. 2 years ago, I'd updated my will. Patricia and I had originally split everything 50-50 between our 2 sons, but my older son Marcus had done extremely well for himself. He was a partner at a law firm in Vancouver, married with 3 kids, and had made it clear he didn't need any inheritance. Save it for Trevor, Marcus had told me. He's struggling more. I'm set. So I'd changed my will. Everything went to Trevor. The condo, worth about $1.2 million in Toronto's insane real estate market. My investment portfolio, another $800,000. My life insurance policy, $500,000. And my business, which I'd been planning to sell when I retired next year, estimated value of around $2 million. Trevor knew about the will. We'd had a conversation about it over dinner one night. I'd wanted to be transparent, to avoid any family drama after I was gone. I'd told both my sons about the arrangement, and Marcus had been completely supportive. But Trevor's reaction had been strange. He'd seemed almost uncomfortable, asking questions about when I planned to retire, whether I was healthy, how long the doctors thought I'd live. At the time, I'd thought he was just worried about me. Now, I realized he'd been calculating. $4.5 million. That's what my life was worth to my son. Can you copy these videos to a USB drive? I asked Sarah, my voice sounding distant and strange to my own ears. Already done, she said, pulling a small flash drive from the desk drawer. I made 2 copies. One for you, one for the police. Give me both, I said. And Sarah, thank you. You may have saved my life, but I need you to promise me something. Don't call the police yet. Give me 48 hours. Then, if you haven't heard from me, call them and give them everything. She hesitated, clearly torn. Mr. Ashford, this man is dangerous. He's been poisoning you. I know, but he's also my son. I need to understand what's happening before I destroy his life. 48 hours. That's all I'm asking. After a long moment, she nodded and handed me both drives. I pocketed them, grabbed my reading glasses from the table where I'd left them, and walked out into the cold October afternoon. The world looked different now, sharper, more dangerous, like someone had adjusted the contrast on reality itself. I didn't go home. Instead, I took a cab to Dr. Chen's office and asked for an emergency appointment. When she saw my face, she cleared her schedule. Richard, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. I need you to test me for poisoning, I said bluntly. Every test you can think of. Heavy metals, toxins, everything. And I need the results kept completely confidential. Don't enter them in any system that anyone else might access. To her credit, Dr. Chen didn't ask questions right away. She saw the seriousness in my face and nodded. Come with me to the lab. This will take a while. 3 hours later, I sat in her office while she reviewed the results, her face growing increasingly grim. Richard, You have elevated levels of arsenic in your system, she said quietly. Not enough to kill you quickly, but definitely enough to cause the symptoms you've been experiencing. Chronic arsenic poisoning presents exactly as you've described: fatigue, confusion, tremors, nausea. Left untreated, it would eventually cause organ failure. Whoever is doing this to you is using small doses over an extended period. It's actually quite sophisticated. Arsenic. Of course, Trevor had access to all sorts of chemicals through his pharmaceutical contacts. It would have been easy for him to obtain. How long do I have? I asked. If exposure stops now, you'll recover, Dr. Chen said. The body can eliminate arsenic over time. But Richard, we need to report this to the police. This is attempted murder. I will, I promised. Soon. But first, I need to take care of something. That night, I sat in my study with a glass of whiskey, my laptop open, and began my investigation. If Trevor was desperate enough to kill me for money, there had to be a reason beyond simple greed. Trevor had always been the more troubled of my two sons, but he'd never been malicious. Something must have pushed him to this. I started with his social media profiles. Nothing unusual. Pictures of him and Stephanie, posts about work achievements, the occasional sports commentary. But then I dug deeper, using some of the investigative techniques I'd learned over decades in accounting. I accessed his credit report through legitimate channels. I'd co-signed on his first car loan years ago, so I still had access. What I found made my blood run cold. Trevor was drowning in debt, not just normal debt. He owed 180,000 inches credit cards, another 75,000 inches personal loans. And most shocking of all, he'd taken out a 300,000 loan from a private lender. The kind that charged extortionate interest rates. The kind that broke legs when you couldn't pay. I dug further. The gambling sites in his browser history told the rest of the story. Sports betting, online poker, casino visits. My son had a serious gambling addiction, and he was in deep with some very dangerous people. The timeline matched perfectly. 6 months ago was when the debt reached critical mass. That's when the poisoning started. Trevor needed me dead to claim his inheritance and pay off his debts. It was that simple, that horrifying. I should have felt angry. Part of me did. But mostly, I felt a crushing sadness. I'd failed him somehow. I'd been so focused on building my business, on providing for my family after Patricia died, that I'd missed the signs of my son's self-destruction. But sadness wouldn't save me. I needed a plan. Over the next 2 days, I put everything in motion. First, I met with my lawyer, James Mackenzie, and made some very specific changes to my will. Then I arranged several other pieces of the puzzle. Finally, I called Trevor and asked him to meet me for dinner at a nice restaurant in Yorkville. Somewhere public, somewhere safe. Sure, Dad, he said, sounding genuinely happy. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, I lied. I just want to talk about your wedding plans. Maybe discuss helping you and Stephanie with a down payment on a house. I could practically hear the excitement in his voice. Of course he was excited. He thought he was close to getting everything. We met at Scaramouche on Thursday evening. Trevor looked good, dressed in a sharp suit, his hair neatly styled. He'd always been the more handsome of my two sons, with Patricia's green eyes and easy smile. Looking at him across the table, I tried to reconcile this man with the person I'd seen on that security footage, calmly poisoning his father's coffee. So, Trevor said after we'd ordered, "What did you want to talk about?" "I've been thinking about your future," I said carefully, "and about my own mortality. I'm 63, Trevor. Not old, but not young either. And these past 6 months, I've been having some health scares." His face showed what looked like genuine concern. "What an actor. What kind of health scares, Dad?" "Dizzy spells, confusion, weakness. The doctors haven't found anything definitive yet, but it's made me think about getting my affairs in order." I watched his pupils dilate slightly. "Interest, anticipation. I wanted to tell you that I've updated my will again," I continued. "I've made some provisions that I think will help you and Stephanie start your marriage on solid financial footing." "Dad, you don't have to." "I want to," I interrupted. "You're my son, I love you, and I want to make sure you're taken care of when I'm gone. So I've arranged for a substantial portion of my estate to be available to you immediately upon my death. No waiting for probate, no delays. You'll have access to liquid funds within days." The look on his face was almost rapturous. "Dad, I don't know what to say. That's incredibly generous. There's just one thing, I said, pulling out an envelope. I need you to sign this acknowledgement that you're aware of the terms. My lawyer suggested it to avoid any potential disputes with Marcus later. Trevor barely glanced at the document before signing it. He was too excited, too focused on the money he thought was coming. What he'd actually signed was a confession that he was aware of my recent health problems and had been present during multiple instances when my symptoms worsened. It was carefully worded by James, my lawyer, to be admissible in court. "Thank you, son," I said, tucking the envelope away. "This means a lot to me. Now, tell me about your wedding plans." We talked for another hour. He spun elaborate stories about venues and guest lists, all of it requiring money he didn't have. Money he was planning to get by murdering me. I played along, asking questions, offering suggestions, all while my heart broke into smaller and smaller pieces. When we parted that night, he hugged me tight. "I love you, Dad," he said. "I love you too," I replied. And despite everything, I meant it. The next morning, I called Detective Sarah Morrison at the Toronto Police Service. I'd gotten her name from a friend who worked in law enforcement. I told her I had evidence of attempted murder and needed to speak with her immediately. 2 hours later, I sat in an interview room at 52 Division, laying out everything. The security footage from the coffee shop, my medical records showing arsenic poisoning, Trevor's financial records documenting his motive, the signed acknowledgement from last night. Detective Morrison's face grew harder with each piece of evidence. "Mr. Ashford, this is one of the most clear-cut cases I've seen," she said. "We'll need to move quickly. With evidence this solid, we can get a warrant for his arrest today. But I need to warn you. This is going to be extremely difficult. He's your son." "I know," I said. "But he was willing to kill me. That's not who I raised him to be. That's not the person I can protect anymore." They arrested Trevor that afternoon at his apartment. I wasn't there, but Detective Morrison told me later that he'd tried to deny everything at first. Then, when confronted with the video evidence, he'd broken down completely. He confessed to everything. The arsenic, the gambling debts, the plan to use the inheritance to pay off the private lenders who'd threatened to kill him if he didn't pay up. He kept saying he was sorry, Detective Morrison told me, that he never wanted to hurt you, but he was desperate. The loan sharks were going to kill him. He saw it as a choice between your life and his. "That's not a choice," I said. "That's an excuse." Trevor was charged with attempted murder and several related offenses. His bail was set at $500,000, which of course he couldn't pay. Stephanie broke off their engagement within days. His employer terminated him immediately. Everything he'd hoped to gain by killing me vanished in the span of a week. I didn't visit him in jail. I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Instead, I focused on my recovery. Dr. Chen monitored my progress carefully as the arsenic levels in my system gradually decreased. The tremors faded. My energy returned. The confusion lifted like fog burning off in morning sunlight. Within 2 months, I felt better than I had in half a year. But the emotional scars were deeper. How do you recover from knowing your own child tried to murder you? How do you reconcile the baby you held, the boy you taught to ride a bike, the young man you sent off to university, with the person who calmly poisoned your coffee while discussing weekend plans? My older son Marcus flew in from Vancouver the week after Trevor's arrest. We sat in my condo, drinking scotch, and trying to make sense of it all. "I should have seen it," Marcus said. "The gambling, the debt, there were signs. We all missed them," I replied. Trevor was good at hiding it, and we wanted to believe he was okay. "What are you going to do?" Marcus asked. "About the trial, I mean. Will you testify?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "I have to. What Trevor did was wrong, and there have to be consequences. But Marcus, I need you to promise me something. Don't hate him. He's still your brother. He made terrible choices, but he's not a monster. He's a sick person who made the worst possible decisions when he was desperate." Marcus looked at me with tears in his eyes. "How can you be so forgiving?" "I'm not forgiving him," I clarified. "I'm understanding him. There's a difference. He'll pay for what he did, but I won't let hatred poison me the way arsenic did. That's just another kind of death." The trial took place 8 months later. I sat in the witness box and told my story. Every detail, every moment of betrayal. I watched Trevor sitting at the defense table, looking smaller somehow, diminished. He never looked at me directly. His lawyer tried to argue diminished capacity due to gambling addiction, but the prosecution, led by Crown Attorney Jennifer Park, demolished that defense. The premeditation was clear. The multiple instances of poisoning showed deliberate, calculated intent. The video evidence was damning. Trevor was found guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge gave him 12 years in federal prison. It was a lighter sentence than attempted murder typically carried, the judge noting Trevor's lack of criminal history and his cooperation with police. But 12 years was still a long time. Before he was led away, Trevor finally looked at me. Our eyes met across the courtroom. He mouthed 2 words. "I'm sorry." I nodded once. I didn't mouth anything back. There were no words that could bridge the chasm between us. That was 3 years ago. Trevor is currently serving his sentence at Millhaven Institution. I've never visited, though I've been told he's been a model prisoner. He's apparently getting treatment for his gambling addiction, and has earned his bachelor's degree through a prison education program. Marcus visits him occasionally and tells me that Trevor seems genuinely remorseful. I changed my will again, obviously. Everything now goes to Marcus, with provisions for his children's education. I've also established a foundation that helps families dealing with gambling addiction. It's called the Patricia Ashford Foundation, named after my late wife. If Trevor's addiction and my near death can prevent even one family from going through something similar, then perhaps some good can come from all this horror. I still have coffee at Java Junction sometimes. Sarah graduated from university and moved to Montreal, but we keep in touch. She sends me a Christmas card every year, and I always include a generous check. She saved my life, after all. Dr. Chen remains my family physician. She still marvels at how close I came to organ failure. Another 2 months, she told me once, and the damage might have been irreversible. I think about that sometimes. 2 more months of trusting my son, of drinking poisoned coffee, and I would have been gone. People ask me sometimes how I've moved on from what Trevor did. The truth is, I haven't really moved on. You don't move on from something like that. You move forward, but you carry it with you. Every time I drink coffee, there's a moment where I remember. Every time I see a father and son together, I feel the loss of what might have been. But I've also learned some important lessons that I want to share, especially with other parents and older adults who might find themselves in vulnerable positions. First, trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, investigate. I ignored my symptoms for too long, accepting the doctor's reassurances that nothing was seriously wrong. If I'd pushed harder for more comprehensive testing earlier, I might have discovered the poisoning sooner. Second, financial transparency can be dangerous. While I believe in open communication with family, revealing the full details of your estate to beneficiaries can create dangerous temptations, especially if those beneficiaries are struggling financially. There are better ways to handle estate planning that protect both your assets and your safety. Third, addiction is a disease that can turn good people into criminals. Trevor wasn't evil. He was sick, desperate, and he made catastrophic choices because of his gambling addiction. If you have family members struggling with any kind of addiction, get them help immediately. Don't wait. Don't hope it will get better on its own. Addiction left untreated can lead to unthinkable actions. Fourth, don't isolate yourself as you age. I was lucky that Sarah was paying attention, that she cared enough to review that footage and warn me. But I'd become somewhat isolated after Patricia's death, relying primarily on my sons for social connection. Build and maintain a network of friends, neighbors, and community connections. These relationships can be life-saving, literally. Fifth, document everything. The security footage saved my life. In situations where you feel threatened or suspicious, document what's happening. Keep records, take notes, save emails. Create a paper trail. Evidence is everything. Finally, and this is perhaps the hardest lesson, sometimes the people we love most are capable of hurting us most deeply. That doesn't mean we stop loving them, but it does mean we have to protect ourselves, even from family. Setting boundaries, even with our children, isn't cruelty, it's survival. I'm 66 now, healthy and active. I sold my accounting firm last year and finally took that trip to Scotland. I'm dating someone, a widow I met at a community center cooking class. Her name is Helen, and she makes me laugh. We take things slowly, carefully. I've learned caution the hard way. Sometimes I wonder what Trevor thinks about, sitting in his cell, Does he replay that day I came back for my glasses, the moment his plan started unraveling? Does he regret not just asking me for help with his debts? I would have helped him. I wouldn't have given him $300,000 to pay off loan sharks that would have just enabled his addiction. But I would have helped him get treatment, helped him find a way out that didn't involve murder. But he never gave me that chance. He chose poison over honesty. He chose inheritance over conversation. And now we both live with the consequences of that choice. Marcus and I have grown closer through all of this. He calls me every week, visits every couple of months. His kids call me Grandpa Rick and video chat with me regularly. There's family there, connection there. It's not what I imagined my life would look like at this age. But it's good. It's real. The other day, I was having coffee at a different café, a new place that opened near my condo. The young barista, a kid who can't be more than 20, brought my order to the table and said, "Here you go, sir. One coffee, prepared fresh just for you." For just a moment, my heart seized. I looked at the cup, thought about all the times Trevor had sat across from me, adding poison while I used the restroom. Then I looked up at the barista's open, honest face, and I smiled. "Thank you," I said, and I drank the coffee. Because the alternative is to live in fear forever, to let Trevor's actions poison not just my body but my spirit. I refuse to give him that much power. I refuse to let attempted murder become successful murder by another name, where I'm so afraid of betrayal that I stop living. Life is risk. Love is risk. Family is the biggest risk of all. We open our hearts to our children, give them everything we have, and trust that they'll honor that gift. Most of the time, they do. Sometimes, tragically, they don't. But we can't let the exceptions destroy our faith in the rule. Most children love their parents. Most families are safe. Most coffee is just coffee. I just happened to forget my glasses at exactly the right moment, and I'm grateful every single day for that forgetfulness. It gave me 3 more years, and counting. Years to travel, to date, to laugh with grandchildren, to establish a foundation that helps others. Years I wouldn't have had if I'd been 30 seconds slower going back for those glasses. Sometimes I wonder if Patricia is somehow watching over me, ensuring I'd forget those glasses, leading me back to discover the truth. I don't know if I believe in that sort of thing, but I like to think she is. I like to think she's proud that I chose justice over revenge, understanding over hatred, life over bitterness. Trevor will be eligible for parole in 5 more years. The parole board has already contacted me, asking if I'd be willing to provide a victim impact statement when the time comes. I haven't decided yet what I'll say. Part of me wants to advocate for his continued imprisonment. Part of me wants to give him a chance at redemption. I have 5 years to figure it out. 5 years I wasn't supposed to have. 5 years that were supposed to be Trevor's inheritance instead of my future. I choose to spend them wisely, and I never, ever forget my glasses anymore.